Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. So today I wanted to bring to your attention on each one, teach one, because we had talked many times segment wise about diabetes, sugars, carbs, things of that nature. And a lot of people have a misconception about carbs versus sugar and whether or not you have to pay attention to both. And the unfortunate truth is you do, because basically, um, when it comes down to carbs and sugar, basically carbs and sugar. This is annoying. Basically, carbs and sugar have a lot to do with. I don't know why it's slanted or whatever, but anyway, basically, carbs and sugar are not good for diabetics. Okay, so as a diabetic, you have to be very, very careful with the way that you, the way that you, um, I don't know why it looks slanted, y'all. I have no idea. With diabetic carbohydrates, a lot of people have believed for some time uh, that carbs were what made you fat and all these other things. A lot of myths, stuff that I don't even want to go into. But when it comes down to being diabetic, they would say, well, if you're a diabetic, you don't have to worry about this, you don't have to worry about that, but you do as a diabetic, because the problem with diabetes is that it will react to both the carbs and the sugar. And so the way that you have to compensate for this is you have to count the carbs and you have to count the sugar. And when you look on the back of your package, in the nutritional facts, it'll show you how much carbohydrates are in there, how many sugars are in there, so on and so forth. And so when that happens, the foods we eat break down when digested, and much of what we eat breaks down into sugar or glucose. Okay, so there's exceptions to certain things. Like the rule is, if it's protein like meats, poultry, fish, and non-starchy vegetables, stuff like that will not necessarily break down into sugar. Now, insulin is needed when we eat anything that breaks down into sugar. And that's the reason why, as a diabetic, if you are eating too much of both the sugar or the carbs, it could be a detriment to you, because if you're not producing insulin properly, then you're basically not breaking down that sugar accordingly. Okay, so the insulin either comes from your pancreas, or you need to take insulin, from a pump or a shot. But whichever the way it comes out, it has to use insulin to break it down. Now, where this gets tricky, and let's say if it's easy to think like sugar as the only um what like sugar is only thing you had to worry about, which in this case you don't. You have to worry about both of them. But what makes it even more confusing is that both of them are on the back of the nutritional label. And when on that nutritional label, we know that it's where we're supposed to look for carbohydrate information. But carbohydrates are actually, unfortunately, carbohydrates are actually um, com- they're compri- com- they're composed of three different nutritional facts. One, carbohydrates, fiber, and sugar. Okay, so you may not be looking at the fiber, you may be looking at the sugar, you may be looking at the carbohydrates, but you will see foods that are very low in sugar but high in carbohydrates. Okay, so let's say, for example, if you look at a popular unfavored old fashioned oats, on the label, you're going to see the total sugar in grams and is 1 gram, right? So that looks right. The items that are particularly sugar-free could have like 1 gram or 0 grams, or they say trans fat or trans. Trans means that there's no trace of it or what have you. But that's not entirely true, because sugar grams are not what we would base our insulin medication needs off of. Okay, what we would have to do is we would have to basically requires us to look at the carbohydrate servings. And for that type of oatmeal, it is a 27 grams of carbs, which is high, because one slice of bread is like 19 grams. And so about 16 to 19 grams. And that's one slice of bread. So if you say 27 grams, that's um, almost 2 slices of bread. And that's far different than 1 gram of sugar in terms of that, because the carbohydrates, obviously you're going to have to use, your body's going to have to be used to break it down. So what we're basically saying here is that when you're looking at carbs, you also need to look at the sugar grams, because the carbs and the sugar is going to tell you, or what you're going to need to know in order to decipher what your blood sugar is going to react to. And a lot of times, and I always tell you to just go by the serving size, but certain things like oatmeal, it could be a little bit too much. Now, you may know that carbohydrates and sugar are what our body converts into energy, and that's for people that don't have diabetes. But what's different here is that between these two, and they're not both, they're essential for healthy balance, for a healthy balanced diet. You have got to decide what you can eat to balance out what you're taking in on the sugar side, whether it's carbs or natural sugars. But what you need to know first is that sugar is a type of carbohydrate, okay, and it's found naturally in many of the foods that we already eat. So it can either occur naturally in foods, or it can be added, like we realize it can be added. So, and it's used by the body for energy. Now, carbohydrates, on the other hand, can include foods made up of starches, fibers, and sugar. So, sugar and other forms of carbohydrates are what our body needs and uses for fuel. And sometimes the CDC will say recommend anywhere between 45 to 65% of your daily calories be from carbohydrates. But for most people, someone who needs can vary, and some people may even benefit from a low carb diet. You have to balance it out and define your carbs. So you can figure that out or whatever. I like to do like protein shakes. So if you use a NutriBullet or something like that, you can pretty much use green spinach, different things to make your protein shakes. Um, and then you can take like a half a banana or a full banana, and then you're just basically going to utilize that and subtract it from what your dietitian tells you to do. But simple carbs are really um, simple sugars, and they're two simple type of sugars. So simple carbohydrates are sugars that can be digested quickly by both your body for energy, and they're also found in foods like candy, syrups, table sugar, fruit juices, things like that. Now, complex carbs are better for you because they're in whole grains, vegetables, legumes, starchy vegetables. So those would be the ones that like I would say, I would put in my NutriBullet, and I use like a lot of spinach, just pile it in there. And I like blueberries because blueberries aren't as high in sugar, pears, things like that. And I'm not here to teach you about that. I think that's something that you have to take the time to learn about. I do want to tell you that there are dangers of simple carbohydrates, and blending that with sugar and not realizing that you can put these two in to your diet. And once you do that, simple carbohydrates are foods that can lead to crashes in your glucose and not give you sustainable energy levels. So it's easy for your body to absorb, but carbs like little nutrient value, and they're high in calories, like the sugar we were talking about, juices. Like you notice people who gain weight a lot because they drink a lot of juice, or they drink a lot of soda or something like that, because that's really not good for you. There's little nutritional value in those kinds of things, and you can have high in calories as far as using simple carbs. Eating too many can cause you health issues, like I said, like diabetes. That's for sure one of the problems. But refined carbs can also negatively affect your brain and in that way. So the benefit of eating complex carbohydrates is complex carbs, sometimes referred to as healthy carbs. They take longer for the body to digest. So, like my favorite thing is sweet potatoes, and you know, I never broke it or chopped up a sweet potato and put it in my Nutribullet, but I want to try that because I can see it tasting good, and I can see it getting some of the juice from the sweet potato, and then the sweet potato is naturally sweet. So I'm going to try that. I'll let you know how it tastes. I bet you it's good. I wonder if somebody's had a sweet potato, a raw sweet potato, put in the Nutribullet. That sounds good. But anyway, back to the healthy carbs. They're complex carbs, and they're called healthy carbs, and they take longer for your body to digest and to convert into glucose. So as it's taking that time to break it down, it's also burning, the sugar and some of the. It won't cause you to spike in blood sugar as a diabetic, um, as simple carbs would. Now, the molecules that are possessed in many critical functions of your body has, including decreased cholesterol and triglyceride levels, also enhanced digestive health and better blood sugar control. So that's why you want to try to use more complex carbs, because they're going to be the healthier carbs. And you can look on the internet for healthy carbs and see what other things that you could find that you might like. Starches are one type of complex carb that can be broken down into glucose and provide energy for your body. The digestive process is very intricate. It takes longer in complex carbs, and it prevents, like I said, those spikes. But if you balance is extremely important, because when you eat healthy and you have this healthy diet, it helps you avoid those spikes, but it also can prevent you from getting diabetes, or if you have it already, will help you from having issues with it. There's some good complex carbs that are great for your digestive system. There's some that have more fiber than others. Like I was saying, I love blueberries. Watermelon's good. Garlic is good. Onions, leeks, things like that. You can figure out. I keep my NutriBullet book so that I'm able to look and see what types of mixtures that I can make out of my NutriBullet, so that I can figure out how I can um, maybe eat something that I like and it's filling, but yet it's not going to spike my blood sugar, and it will help me to sleep better, as well as keep my brain functioning well. Now, when you talk about sugar, sugar is a type of carbohydrate, no doubt, but it's broken down into glucose when it digests by your body, and when that happens, it's found naturally in things like fruit and vegetables, and it can be added into the food processor, but it turns into sugar, like I said. So you've heard of sugar that's referred to glucose or fructose or sucrose or even lactose, but there's like 60 different names for sugar. And so that's why it's a scary thought, because some people don't realize it's being hidden. You get some essential vitamins and minerals like potassium and vitamin C from bananas and different things like that. But it's important that you understand how carbohydrates and sugar affect your blood sugar. And that is important. So that's the reason why it's important for you to do your research and read the nutritional facts and stay on top of the sugar versus carbs scenario. Because for so many years and so many people, it was like, oh no, you don't have to worry about that. But you definitely do have to worry about that. And so the main thing is, when you take a closer look at the carbohydrates, as well as what they are foods and what's defining them, they've recently developed a poor name, and they've been criticized both in the press and on social media. But the main thing is why you shouldn't just cut sugar from your diet, because your gut biome needs complex carbs to thrive. Okay, your human brain is powered by glucose, and you have to watch out for refined, added, and free sugars. You know how to build yourself into a healthy and balanced meal with carbs. And basically, carbohydrates are an essential uh, micronutrient that your body requires in large amounts to run smoothly. But not all carbs are created equal. So you have to learn more about them. Sugars mostly, you know, make up carbohydrates, but they get their name from their composition, the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, thus carbohydrate. But generally, the length of the sugar chain can be confusing. So that's the reason why it's important to understand what you're reading on the nutritional facts, because on the nutritional facts, historically, different populations have thrived on varying amounts of carbohydrates in their diets. And they say, oh, we need this amount or that amount. But you're going to have to decipher what you need and what is going to be best for your body, especially if you're one of these people like myself that has type 2 diabetes and you have to monitor your diabetes and your sugar intake. And so, I usually, when I talk to my dietitian or I talk to my pharmacist, and they'll tell me, okay, we're going to increase this med or whatever, but this means you get this amount or what have you. And they can tell based on your hemoglobin A1C when they take a lab. They do labs on you over every 3 month period. And in that 3 month period, they want you to stay below a 5. Sometimes it's hard because everybody is different and your body does varying things based on whatever it is that creates your spikes and stuff like that. Because sometimes it can be, you know, the vegetables, it could be starchy vegetables, it could be sugar, whatever. But if we took a historical look at the eating patterns in Mediterranean um, uh, times or climates, vegetables, legumes, and nuts have always featured heavy in local cuisines. And so that's good for them because it serves as a higher fat and high protein diets, and fresh plants based foods, which are hard to grow in some places, but it helps them to thrive a little bit better and a lot healthier. But nowadays, processed and refined diet carbohydrates are commonplace. So you got to watch out for that too, and to get as much natural vegetation that you can. And that's why I suggest the NutriBullet, because you can go and buy some fresh spinach, baby spinach, arugula, whatever your druthers are, and you could use those in large quantities that make up drinks and things, and they're fresher and better for you, you know. So sugars like glucose and fructose are just like examples of sugar that are too chemically designed to uh, cause more problems for you, because they're going to either be glucose or fructose. So you want to be careful. Um, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have some sugar, but again, you have to decide how much and of what group you're going to do that. And I just tell you, the more natural, the better. So if you're using your blueberries, watermelon, it has fiber. You just want to make sure that you look up the amount of servings per fruit or per um, item that you should eat. There's some top sources of sugars that you can eat, like chocolate, um, top sources of added sugars: chocolate, confectioners, sweet, soft drinks, fruit juices, biscuits, cakes, buns, fruit yogurt, ice cream, um, ketchup. Ketchup is a sneaky one. Um, so I'm very particular about using ketchup and not using ketchup. If you get ready-made meals like spaghetti or uh, dinners that are already prepared, you just throw in the microwave. You got to be careful. Top sources of added sugar, that is very, very important to look on the label. And like I said, look under the fiber, the carbohydrates, and the sugars thing. Now, There's some simple sugar strategies just to get more of your whole food into your diet at the end of the day. And some of these could be carbohydrates can't be digested, first of all, by the body. This is like some carbohydrates can't be digested by the body. Instead, they travel to the colon where they provide important sustenance for your gut bacteria. So some of these carbohydrates are well studied. So they could be like um, sugar and some starches that turn into glucose by the small intestines for energy, and others head into the colon where they are broken down into bacteria. So you got to do your homework. Probiotic and beneficial bacterial bacteria, the ferment, and the carbohydrates have a range of benefits that digest overall in your for your health. So you want to make sure that you're looking at, and pretty much your plate should just look healthy. You know, you could do different things. It should just be colorful. Whole foods with an array of healthy benefits and nutrients. Artificial sweeteners have like long been promoted as healthier alternatives, but a recent study indicates you all that they are not. So I will tell you, when I make my coffee in the morning, I use sugar in the raw. I use 4 packets of sugar in the raw, and just so you know, the, I did the math. 8 grams is 8 grams um, of sugar in those four packages, if I'm not mistaken. But you just got to do your math. But high fiber diets aren't complicated to implement. Um, Whole foods are available in all supermarkets. Think fruit and vegetables. Okay, like I said. But to be honest, if you walk down the aisle of a supermarket, unless it's Whole Foods is kind of aesthetically pleasing because everything you look at you think is healthy. But if you walk down the aisle, like the potato chips and the rice and all that, it's not aesthetically pleasing. So when you stay in the produce section, it's really colorful and pretty and exciting. It's like, ooh, what can I make with this? Or what can I make with that? Or if I take this sweet potato, I can make a sweet potato like a baked potato. And I use vegan butter, Earth Balance. Um, but anyway, so I take that sweet potato, maybe I get a little spinach on the side, and then have a piece of fish or something like that. But like for breakfast, I might do eggs or egg whites. Every morning, I don't know. Sometimes it's people will call it an omelet, but me, I just throw it in the skillet. I chop up onions, bell pepper. These are things I like: onions, bell pepper, a handful of spinach, and then I take potatoes, like maybe what I use are like frozen crinkle cut French fries. I take a palm size and I put them in the skillet, and it wouldn't be enough if you was eating French fries. So it's maybe like 8 French fries. Excuse me, 8 to 10, and I let them get a little thawed out in the skillet, and then I break them up with a spatula, and then I add my onion and my bell pepper. And then I add my spinach. I let my spinach cook down a little bit. And while that's happening, I'm beating my egg. And then once my spinach has cooked down a little bit and it becomes a little opaque, you know, or a little soggy, but like not too done, I pour my eggs over it and I make an egglet, omelet, whatever you call it. But I eat it as a scramble, and I love that. I love it. And I might have some bacon. And I think I've told you all before, I take my bacon, cut it in half, and then I use half sizes or half pieces of bacon. And then I might have 4 half pieces of bacon, which is 2 pieces of bacon, which is really what you should have in the fat content of that. And I find that by before noon, I know my blood sugar is low because I had such a high protein and high low sugar breakfast that by lunchtime I can be shaking a little bit. So I have to be careful to um, eat like a um, banana or something that is going to sustain me until lunchtime. And so at the time after breakfast is when I can have that banana or maybe some watermelon or something sweet. Not like this guy. Okay, let me tell you this. I do get sugar-free cookies, the Vortmans. I think that's how you say it, Vortmans. And so I put on my Instacart, I want the Vortmans that look, it's like they're called vanilla wafers. Not vanilla wafers like the circles. These are like wafer cookies that are like what an ice cream cone is made out of, and then has like icing in the middle, and then another wafer, and they're sugar free. And I've eaten those for years. I love them, and they taste great. And they're by Vortman. And so then I ordered that, and I ordered the sugar bread, zero sugar Vortman cookies. See, this is why if I do Instacart or something, I make sure that it's packaged because I don't want nobody picking out nothing raw. Because these people, they get attitudes that they're out here doing your groceries, but they may go and get this job in the first place. Why this boy gonna give me some damn Oreos as a replacement for the actual sugar-free cookies? So I complained to Instacart because I was like, why would you give me Oreo cookies as a replacement for sugar-free cookies? Are you an idiot? What the hell? So anyway, I was annoyed, and it just ended up to where they had to refund some stuff. But it's just crazy that you go through stuff like that with people that don't want to take pride in shopping for somebody else. I'd rather hell that you just don't get my grocery list because I don't want to be one that has to deal with it. Now I got a package of Oreos that I'm going to be enticed by because I have a sugar problem. Okay, but I'm good about if I'm gonna eat them. I look at the package and it tells you that three of them is considered a serving, and sometimes I just want one and I'm good. I mean, I've been dealing with it long enough to where I'm better at it than I used to be. But again, I can slide back too. And sometimes if you eat something like that, it gets you way off kilter with your blood sugar in a matter of seconds. So, but we as human beings need to consume at least 30 grams of fiber per day to see and feel its benefits. Much of the fiber that's found in plant based food helps us to feed the abundance of bacterial cells living in our gut, known as prebiotics. Not pro, but pre. So, it's very important that you get that fiber in because fiber is a part of what's helping to break down some of that yuckiness in your tummy, and it helps to get you right. And you can figure out what to eat in the high fiber category by looking in on the internet under high fiber diets. They're not complicated, but most of it, again, are whole foods. And if you just think of fruit and vegetables, you're going to be fine. Okay. Also, you can use whole grains like legumes, um, pulses, and starches as a base of your meals and build upon that, adding lots of fruits and vegetables alongside protein and fats. But you want to incorporate more fiber into your diet. And it doesn't have to be boring and it don't have to be nasty. You don't have to be feeling like you got to be Popeye, but just consume only spinach leaves. For instance, you ain't got to just consume only spinach. You could do a myriad of things. But our brains are complex organs, and they require energy to work. And carbohydrates is huge for the cognitive functionality. And so, without it, you cannot perform at your very best. I know I get dizzy sometimes because maybe I'm not drinking enough water. Maybe I'm not, doing what I need to do. But our brain needs about 120 grams of glucose per day. And without it, cognitive function is impaired. So do your research, people. Come on, let's have healthy bodies. But I like talking about this subject because it's been difficult for me. It's been a lot for me sometimes because if I know I'm craving chocolate or cake or cookies, it's because I have too much sugar in my blood. So it's important to make sure that you're getting the refined carbohydrates like breads and cakes and stuff like that, um, that they to know that they develop into metabolic diseases like diabetes and other things, but they can also have a major effect on our neurocognitive functionality. So it can affect your cognitive, and you might even notice it in other ways because it'll mess up your nerves. And added refined sugar is readily available in every food and everything you eat. So just check your labels, major effects on our neurocognitive functionality is something we don't want. Okay, so basically, let's check the labels for both sugar and make a healthy meal with carbs. You can easily reduce your free sugar intake by switching to a healthier, high fiber diet. Okay, so learn more about what that is, and let's get on the good foot. All right, guys, talk to you next time, and we'll be back with our 100th segment of Rep Your City. Be right back.